So, something that sort of we didn't cover at the time because, well, pretty much as I said it before in the last videos we sort of did about this, it's going to become a feature. This is a regular feature now. The chaos that we see down in Kent is not a anomalous blip. This is going to happen every single summer, every single Easter, every single time there is a surge in passenger traffic. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to get queues down at Dover. You know, anyone who is anyone who will tell you, just as these coach people are finding out now, is basically simple this: that is now a border. If you want to pass that border, you have to get your passport stamped. Why do you have to get your passport stamped? Because of Brexit. We are a third country. The UK government asked the European Union to start doing that. You know, any EU citizen, well, they have to have their passport stamped by UK, border controls. So the same applies to us as well. It's not rocket science, but things are about to get potentially incredibly worse because the government has announced that, well, from October, the new checks, the customs checks that have been long delayed are about to come in. And this has lots of industries, especially the food industries, incredibly worried about these checks when they finally come in. And remember, we have delayed them 3 times. And the last time we delayed them within about, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks of the checks officially coming in. And then Jacob Rees-Mogg went, oh, expanding them to another year. Now, I am highly skeptical that these checks are going to be brought in October. Highly skeptical these checks are going to be brought in October. So I would not be shocked if these, shall we say, magically get moved down to October of 2024. So it would not surprise me. But if they do come in, well, we're in for a huge problems. Huge problems. And this is not only just talking about the biometric checks, which come in November, where we're starting to now have to give thumbprints and I think other biometric data. I think you have to have like your face scanned and stuff like that. That's going to increase the time of these checks even more. So the idea that this is, as Brexiteers love to say whenever this issue comes up, oh, this is just an anomaly. This is just France being France, or they're not staffing the border controls fully when, as everyone has said, no, those positions, even at this Easter weekend, were fully manned. It's just... and things are about to get worse. Things are about to get exceptionally worse. Oh boy. So before we go into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And, good luck if you are traveling this summer, because I think you're going to need it, especially if you're going through through Dover. Oh boy, are you going to need it by the looks of it. So before we do continue on to this, like I say, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page, the one-off donation link where you can buy me coffee, etc. Pony Club, all that stuff down below. And of course, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help support the channel. And of course, on with this. So this comes from Sky News with the title of Dover Delays Are a Lesson in Brexit Realities, and they may be about to get worse. So we're just going to skip over this first part because you've heard this. It's all about the coaches. We know why the coaches are being checked. It's because of passports. It's what we essentially asked for. However, this is the big change. This is the big change which is going to affect them all. And this is what you are not seeing a lot of people talk about, which is the checks that third countries have to go through. And this comes in potentially in October. This is when stuff will start to get serious. So this will change in October after the Cabinet Office has confirmed that new customs regimes, which is what should have been in place from back in sort of January of 2020, but then got pushed to 2021, pushed to 2022, then pushed to 2023. I think they're going to cancel the fourth time. I really, really do. So they have confirmed that this customs regime will finally be introduced almost 3 years after it was first scheduled. Ministers have tried to outline what they've called a streamlined border process for all imports to the UK. I don't think this is going to work out, but we'll see. They have proposed to try and reduce checks for low-risk goods and a, quote, trusted trader model for regular importers. Again, I can see this being radically exploited. I'm sure we will get stories in the future just how much this is being exploited. Bear in mind, at the moment, there is a massive meat scandal going on, which no one seems to be really talking about, which is kind of shocking, but there you go. So the trusted trader model for more regular importers, and of course, physical checks will take place away from the ports at border control posts, built at great cost for the original January 2021 deadline, but largely unused since. And we've talked before about these goods being checked outside the port, because what happens between them being told to go to that checking place, between them going off there to get to the checking place, this is an absolute smuggler's dream. Oh yes, your load looks suspicious, sir. You in this white van. Will you please go to this checking point? Meanwhile, this guy could drive to a separate location, drop off those illicit goods, then drive to the checking point, get checked, go back, pick up those illicit goods, and then continue on to wherever he might want to go. Good plan, guys. Good plan. This is gonna end up in such a disaster. So many things can end up disastrously on this. So, but some business groups have, of course, welcomed this commitment to try simplify the process. I think they'll be complaining about this very quickly, and that have been hanging over Brexit trade since 2016. But in the food trade, there is a deep disquiet. More onerous paperwork will still be required for the food and animal imports, and these processes is what is worrying the industry. To receive a phytosanitary and phytosanitary certificate, probably haven't said that right, but there you go. The regime ensures for food safety that EU exporters will, for the first time, need a vet to sign off for shipments at the point of origin. That means that French cheese and Spanish cured meats will need a local vet to sign off, a process that could add prohibitive costs to small producers. So we're going to see these now take place. And this is going to have a big knock-on effect to, well, EU companies wanting to import into the UK market. So when UK companies faced these same requirements back in 2021, the shortage of vets and, of course, the £300 fee for every signature forced some to stop exporting. And that is what we have seen. So now we are going to get the exact same thing. And this is what will come into effect. So the UK remains a big market, but the recent tomato and salad vegetable shortages have proved that European sellers have plenty of alternatives if the numbers don't add up. So if you're, again, a French cheesemaker, or you're a Spanish cured meats seller, you've now got all this extra paperwork. You've got all this extra cost if you want to sell your goods into the UK. Two things are going to happen. First of all, You don't need to sell into the UK. You have plenty of choice within the EU to be able to sell your goods. And third of all, or second of all, if someone from the UK wants your goods and you've got to export them, and you're a French cheesemaker or you're, again, the Spanish cured meat seller, that cost is going to be added. So you are going to see the price of food rise even more because of these checks come into place. And this is what made Jacob Rees-Mogg put off these checks just last year. You may remember him in his big high-vis suit out down in Dover while trying to explain why he was not bringing in these checks because the cost would just be too great for British businesses. Meanwhile, of course, at that time, the cost of living crisis was, massively kicking off. And really, from what we were hearing, the government didn't want to bring in these checks at a time when the cost of living crisis was, again, massively kicking off because, well, this might mean that even more people now couldn't afford to eat. So this is going to cause such big disasters, such big backlogs. And like I say, if UK firms have now just gone, well, it's now too expensive for us to sell into Europe. What do you think the smaller producers from EU are going to do? They've got more choice to go and sell into the EU. We don't. Doesn't matter that we've signed this Pacific Partnership because all those countries halfway around the world. It doesn't add up for us to be part of this partnership at all. And yet you've got Jacob Rees-Mogg going around saying, oh, but Japan has such high and wonderful food standards. If you've ever been to Japan and you've ever seen the price of fresh fruit and vegetables over there, it is pretty high. It is insanely high what they have to pay for fresh fruit and vegetables and things like salads. That's why in Japan, most things are sort of, processed foods. And that's the thing that, again, should be brought up to people like Jacob Rees-Mogg about the high price of the fresh fruit and vegetables in Japan. But of course, they don't want to talk about it. So this government says that the new scheme will be phased in with the paperwork required from October before physical checks begin in January of next year. In reality, the cost of the paperwork is likely to be the pinch point, and we cannot know how exporters will react. Ministers have promised that the new system will be world class because, yes, every time the term world class has been said, it's been very quickly followed by a world class disaster, which we are probably very quickly heading into with this. They cite almost an annual £400 million worth of saving for businesses compared with the national cost of the original plan, which never even happened. A more realistic comparison is between the current regime, to which EU exporters means the same minimal processes as before Brexit, and the new system, which new processes will have costs that have never been tried before. As plenty of school children can now tell you, that does not always end well. So that is the reality. That is the new system that is coming in place very, very quickly. It is going to be an absolute disaster. It is going to cause even more economic turmoil. It is going to lead to even more potential rises in inflation. Like I say, bear in mind, inflation in Europe is starting to come down very slowly but steadily. It's starting to come down. Our inflation seems to be going up a lot more. All I can tell you, October is going to be very, very interesting. But I can tell you now already, probably in like September, we will probably start to see stories of food companies trying to ring the alarm bell saying, yeah, this isn't going to be good. I can already predict we're probably going to start seeing stories about this already. But as we've already found out with the shortages we've seen of salads and other sort of various fresh fruits, EU exporters, they've got a massive multiple of choice being in the EU. And if it's too costly to send goods over to the UK, well, they'll either they've got that extra choice, they don't have to sell it to the UK, or they will just pass on the cost, which will make these imports even more expensive. So, yeah, this just does not end well. is the sorry probably end to this tale, and I would not be surprised if we get to the beginning of maybe October and towards the end of September, and these checks are once again kicked down the road. It would not surprise me if that ends up being the case. If they do come in, well, I suddenly have a lot more to talk about in terms of Brexit-related crises and, oh boy, the whole chaos that is going to be. So either way, it's a win-win for me, but not for the rest of the UK, unfortunately. So, as always, thank you very much for stopping by and watching, and of course, as always, thank you very much for watching. Do remember to click on the like and share button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, the Pony Club, the YouTube thank you button. All that is down below. And as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, we'll see you all next time.